Picture this, you spend 3 years of your life pouring everything into one project, your expertise, your creativity, your sleepless nights, your passion. You design something beautiful, something that will stand in your city for 100 years. Something that thousands of people will use every single day. And then, right before the grand opening, you discover something that makes your blood run cold. They've removed your name. They're giving credit to someone who didn't lift a finger. Someone who didn't spend 3 years perfecting every detail, someone who had nothing to do with this project. Why? Because they think a black woman's name isn't enough. They think they need a white-toned firm's name to add credibility. This happened in 2023. To a brilliant architect named Dr. Maya Henderson, and what she did next? It changed everything. If you've ever had someone steal credit for your work, this story is for you. If you've ever wondered why recognition matters so much, this story will show you. Hit that like button right now, subscribe to Truly Black and White, and get ready for one of the most powerful stories about fighting for what you've earned. This is about a woman who refused to be erased, a woman who stood up and said, "No, my name belongs on this building." Let's begin. Let me tell you about Dr. Maya Henderson. But before I tell you what happened to her, you need to understand who she is. Because when you know her story, when you understand what she overcame and what she achieved, what they tried to do to her becomes even more shocking. Maya Henderson grew up in Detroit, Michigan, in a house full of books and big dreams. Her father taught mathematics at a community college. Her mother was an elementary school principal. Both of them believed in education like some people believe in religion, with complete faith that it could change your life. Young Maya was the kid who drove her parents a little bit crazy, not because she was bad, but because she never stopped building things. Legos covered her bedroom floor like a multicolored carpet, but Maya didn't follow the instruction booklets. Those were boring. Instead, she created her own designs, intricate buildings, towering bridges, entire cities that existed only in her imagination. "What are you building today, Maya?" her father would ask. "A library where everyone can feel welcome," 8-year-old Maya would respond. "Or a school with lots of windows so kids can see outside. Or a house where people in wheelchairs can go everywhere without help." Even as a child, Maya understood something profound. Buildings aren't just structures, they're spaces where life happens. When Maya was in high school, she told her guidance counselor about her dream. "I want to be an architect," she said confidently. The counselor, a white woman who probably thought she was being helpful, smiled in that condescending way adults sometimes do when they think a child's dream is unrealistic. "That's ambitious, Maya. But architecture is a very competitive field, very difficult to break into. Have you thought about something more achievable? Maybe interior design? You could decorate homes, make things look pretty, or real estate. You're good with people?" Maya went home that day feeling deflated, hurt, dismissed. But when she told her parents what the counselor had said, her father sat her down and spoke words she would never forget. "Baby girl, other people's limited imagination doesn't have to limit your dreams. That counselor can't see what you'll become because she's never seen someone who looks like you in that profession. But that doesn't mean you can't be the first one she sees." Her mother added, "You want to be an architect? Then be an architect. Work harder than everyone else. Be better than everyone else. And don't you dare let someone else's doubt become your own." So Maya applied to one of the top architecture programs in the country, the University of Michigan. She got in. And for the next 5 years, she worked harder than she'd ever worked in her life. Architecture school isn't like regular college. It's brutal. You're not just memorizing facts for tests. You're learning to think in 3 dimensions. You're learning complex math and physics. You're learning about materials, building codes, accessibility standards, environmental impact, engineering principles. And you're doing it while pulling all-nighters to finish projects, building physical models by hand, and presenting your designs to professors who will tear them apart and make you start over. Maya loved it, but it was also lonely. She was often the only black woman in her classes, sometimes the only black student, period. And she faced what people call microaggressions, small moments of bias and prejudice that individually seem minor but together add up to something crushing. Like the first day of her advanced design class, the professor looked at her and said, "Are you sure you're in the right room? The art history class is down the hall." He assumed she couldn't possibly be an architecture student. Or the time a study group partner asked, "So, are you here on some kind of diversity scholarship?" The implication being clear, you couldn't have gotten here on merit. You must have needed special help. or the countless times her designs were described as interesting or bold, while her white classmates' virtually identical work was called brilliant and innovative. These moments hurt, but Maya kept going. Because she loved architecture. She loved the idea of creating spaces where people would work, learn, gather, celebrate, grieve, and make memories. After graduation, she worked at several prestigious firms. She got experience on major projects, office buildings, museums, shopping centers. She learned from talented architects. She paid her dues, but Maya noticed something troubling. Even as she gained experience and proved her abilities, she was rarely given lead positions. Her ideas were often presented by senior partners, white men, who would take credit for her concepts. She watched less qualified colleagues get promoted while she was told to be patient and wait her turn. At 35, Maya made a bold decision. She started her own firm, Henderson Architecture and Design. Starting a business is risky for anyone, but for a black woman in a field dominated by white men, the obstacles were enormous. Banks were hesitant to give her loans. Architecture is a risky business, they'd say. Do you have a male partner who could co-sign? Potential clients would schedule meetings with her, see that she was a black woman, and suddenly decide they wanted to explore other options. Construction contractors didn't take her seriously. "You sure you know what you're talking about, sweetheart?" they'd ask condescendingly. But Maya built her firm project by project, client by client, dollar by dollar. She specialized in public buildings, schools, libraries, community centers, buildings that served everyone regardless of income or background, and her work became known for something special. Yes, it was beautiful. But more than that, it was thoughtful. Maya designed with accessibility in mind, making sure people with disabilities could navigate easily. She used sustainable materials that were better for the environment. She created spaces that felt welcoming to everyone, not just wealthy people or white people. Her buildings told a story. Everyone deserves beautiful, functional spaces. By the time she was 42, Dr. Maya Henderson, she'd earned a doctorate in architecture by this point, had built a reputation as one of the most talented architects in the Midwest. Her portfolio included award-winning libraries, innovative schools, and community centers that had transformed neighborhoods. And that's when her phone rang with the opportunity of a lifetime. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon in March. Maya was in her office reviewing blueprints for a new library project when her assistant knocked on the door. "Maya, you have a call from the mayor's office." The Grand Rapids mayor's office. Maya's heart skipped. Grand Rapids was a major city in Michigan, not as big as Detroit but significant, and the mayor's office calling an architect usually meant one thing, a big project. She picked up the phone. "Dr. Henderson, this is Jennifer Walsh, Chief of Staff for Mayor Richard Brennan. The mayor would like to discuss a potential project with you. Would you be available to meet this week?" 2 days later, Maya sat in a conference room at City Hall, looking at photographs of a building she knew well. Grand Rapids City Hall had been built in 1966. It was a concrete monstrosity, all harsh angles and tiny windows. It looked like a prison more than a place of democratic governance. Worse, it was falling apart. The HVAC system barely worked. The building wasn't accessible for people with disabilities. The layout was confusing. Employees hated working there. Citizens dreaded visiting. "We need a complete renovation," the mayor explained. "We want to modernize the building while respecting its historical significance. We want it to represent our city's values, progressive, inclusive, forward-thinking." He looked at Maya. "We've reviewed your portfolio, Dr. Henderson. Your work on the Eastbrook Community Center particularly impressed us. We'd like to invite you to submit a proposal for this project." Maya tried to keep her face professional, but inside she was screaming with excitement. City Hall. The literal center of civic life. The building where laws were made, where justice was administered, where democracy happened. This was the kind of project architects dream about. "I'd be honored," Maya said calmly. "When do you need the proposal?" 3 months. Maya spent every waking hour of those 3 months on that proposal. She researched the building's history. She studied the original architectural plans from the 1960s. She met with city employees to understand how they used the space. She held community meetings to hear what citizens wanted from their city hall. She learned that people felt disconnected from their government. The building was cold and unwelcoming. It felt designed to keep people out rather than invite them in. So Maya designed something revolutionary. She would preserve the building's historic facade, honoring its past, but completely reimagine the interior. The centerpiece of her design was a massive open atrium that would flood the building with natural light. No more dark, depressing hallways. Instead, sunlight and openness. She designed community meeting rooms on the first floor that would be free for public use. Want to organize a neighborhood meeting? Use City Hall. Starting a community group? Meet at City Hall. This building would belong to the people. She incorporated sustainable technologies, solar panels on the roof, a rainwater collection system, high-efficiency HVAC-led lighting. The building would reduce energy costs by 40% and serve as a model for environmental responsibility. But most importantly, Maya's design was deeply symbolic. The new City Hall would literally be more transparent, with glass walls allowing citizens to see their government at work. No more closed doors and secret meetings. Democracy should be visible. It was architecture that made a statement. Your government works for you, this building is yours. When Maya presented her proposal to the city council, she explained every choice. This glass wall here, it's not just pretty. It's a statement that government should operate in the light, not in shadows. These ramps, they're not just for wheelchair access. They're designed to be beautiful, to show that accessibility isn't an afterthought, it's integral to good design. This atrium. It's not just a nice space, it's a gathering place where citizens can meet, organize, and exercise their democratic rights. When she finished her 45-minute presentation, the room was silent. Then one council member stood up and started clapping, then another, and another. Within seconds, the entire room was on their feet, applauding. The mayor shook her hand. This is exactly what we need, Dr. Henderson. This is the future of our city. 2 weeks later, Maya got the call she'd been waiting for. She'd won the contract. A $45 million renovation, the biggest project of her career. Her name would be on City Hall. Maya called her parents, crying happy tears. She called her team. They popped champagne in the office. This was what all the hard work had been for, all the sleepless nights in architecture school, all the years of being underestimated. All the times she'd been told she wasn't good enough. This was her moment. For the next 3 years, Maya poured everything into this project. She oversaw every single detail. She worked with contractors, engineers, interior designers. She made hundreds of decisions every week about materials, colors, layouts, mechanical systems, lighting, furnishings. There were challenges, budget issues when material costs increased, supply chain problems during the pandemic. Disagreements with city officials who wanted cheaper options, but Maya navigated all of it with professionalism and grace. She visited the construction site almost every day. She wore a hard hat with her name emblazoned on it. She climbed scaffolding to check details 60 feet in the air. She got her hands dirty. The construction workers, initially skeptical of taking orders from a woman, let alone a black woman, came to respect her deeply. She knew her stuff. She could answer any question. She understood the work they did. Dr. Henderson knows more about this building than anyone, one foreman told a journalist. She's got every detail in her head. She's the real deal. Finally, after 3 years of blood, sweat, and architectural brilliance, the project was complete. The new City Hall was stunning, even more impressive than the renderings. Light poured through the atrium. The community spaces were warm and inviting. The sustainable systems worked perfectly. It was everything Maya had promised and more. The mayor scheduled a grand reopening ceremony for October 15th. There would be tours, speeches, a ribbon cutting. The governor was coming. Local and state media would cover it. It would be a proud moment for the city, and for Maya, the culmination of her life's work. At these kinds of events, there's always a dedication plaque. You've probably seen them. Brass or bronze plaques mounted on walls listing everyone involved in a major project. The mayor, the city council, the contractors, and of course the architect. Maya assumed she'd see her name on that plaque. Why wouldn't she? She was the lead architect. This was her design, her vision, her 3 years of life. 3 weeks before the grand reopening, Maya received an email from the mayor's communications director. Subject line, final approval needed for dedication materials. She opened the attachment. It was a proof of the dedication plaque. Maya's eyes scanned down the list of names. Mayor Richard Brennan, the city council members, Grand Rapids Construction Company, Midwest Engineering Associates. Then, under architecture, she read, Henderson Architecture and Design in collaboration with Whitmore and Associates. Maya stared at her screen. Whitmore and Associates, a name that shouldn't be there, a firm that had nothing to do with this project. Her name, Dr. Maya Henderson, wasn't on the plaque at all, just her firm's name paired with another firm as if they'd worked together. But they hadn't. Maya's hands started shaking. They were trying to erase her. Maya sat frozen at her desk, staring at that plaque proof on her computer screen. This had to be a mistake. Maybe the communications director had gotten confused. Maybe someone had pulled an old list of architecture firms from a different project. Maybe this was just an administrative error. It had to be. She picked up her phone and called the communications director directly. "Hi, this is Dr. Henderson. I just reviewed the dedication plaque proof you sent. There's an error. Whitmore and Associates wasn't involved in this project at all. It was entirely my firm, Henderson Architecture and Design. And my name should be listed as the principal architect." There was a pause on the other end. Then, "Oh, well, we thought it would be better to list the firm names rather than individual names. Keeps it cleaner, you know." Maya's professional tone didn't waver, but her grip on the phone tightened. "But Whitmore and Associates wasn't involved. There was no collaboration. This was entirely my firm's work." "Why is their name on there at all?" Another pause, longer this time. I'll check with the mayor's office and get back to you." Click. Maya sat there, her mind racing. Something wasn't right. This wasn't just an administrative error. Someone had deliberately added Whitmore and Associates to the plaque. But why? That evening, Maya did some research. Whitmore and Associates was one of the oldest architecture firms in Grand Rapids, founded in 1943. Big, established, well-respected, they designed several prominent buildings in the city over the decades. They were also entirely white-toned, had been for their entire 80-year history. Maya dug deeper. She looked up the senior partner, Thomas Whitmore III, grandson of the firm's founder, and then she found it. A photograph from a university alumni magazine. Thomas Whitmore III and Mayor Richard Brennan, arms around each other's shoulders, smiling at the camera. The caption read, "College roommates reunited at the 25th reunion." The mayor and the senior partner of Whitmore and Associates were college buddies. Suddenly, pieces started falling into place. The mayor wanted to do a favor for his old friend, or maybe he thought having Whitmore's name on the plaque would add what? Credibility, legitimacy. The implication was clear and sickening. A black woman architect, even one with impeccable credentials and a brilliant design, apparently wasn't enough on her own. They needed a white-toned firm's name to make it respectable. Maya felt sick, not just angry, sick. Because this wasn't new, this was a pattern she'd seen her entire career. Black people's work getting credited to white people, women's contributions being minimized, people of color having to share credit with white colleagues who did nothing. But this was her building, 3 years of her life, and they were trying to act like she'd needed help from a firm that hadn't even been involved. The next morning, Maya called her lawyer. Elizabeth Kim had been Maya's attorney for years. Smart, tough, and didn't take nonsense from anyone. "Tell me everything," Elizabeth said. Maya explained the situation. The plaque, the added firm, the mayor's connection to Whitmore. "Do you have your contract?" Elizabeth asked. Maya pulled it out and started reading through it. She'd negotiated hard on the terms when she'd signed 3 years ago, making sure everything was in writing. And there it was. Page 12, Section 7, Subsection C. The city agrees to provide appropriate professional credit to Henderson Architecture and Design and Dr. Maya Henderson as lead architect on all public materials related to this project, including but not limited to dedication plaques, promotional materials, press releases, and historical documentation. It was in writing. Black and white, legally binding. "They're in breach of contract," Elizabeth said simply. "Send me that plaque proof, I'll draft a letter." 2 days later, the city received a letter from Elizabeth Kim, attorney at law. It was polite but firm. It quoted the contract language. It pointed out that adding another firm that wasn't involved violated the agreement. It requested that the plaque be corrected to accurately reflect Dr. Henderson as the sole lead architect. Maya waited for a response and waited and waited. Finally, 5 days later, Maya's phone rang, the mayor's chief of staff. "Dr. Henderson, we seem to have a misunderstanding here." Maya's jaw clenched. She hated that word. Misunderstanding? It was code for "we did something wrong, but we're going to pretend it was just confusion." "Let me explain the situation," the chief of staff continued. "Whitmore and Associates provided some consulting during the project, just minor advice, really, but we felt it was important to acknowledge their contribution." "What consulting?" Maya asked. I have no record of any involvement from Whitmore. I was the lead architect. If there had been consulting from another firm, I would have known about it. Oh, well, it was informal, conversations with the mayor's office. They helped us understand some of the technical aspects of your proposal. Maya felt her blood pressure rising. The technical aspects that I explained to you in multiple presentations, the technical aspects that are entirely my design, that I spent 3 years implementing. Look, Dr. Henderson, we're not trying to diminish your role. Your firm is listed, but we think it's important to acknowledge everyone who contributed to this project's success. Maya took a deep breath. Stay professional, stay calm. If you want to acknowledge everyone who contributed, she said slowly and clearly, then my name, Dr. Maya Henderson, should be on that plaque as the lead architect, as the contract explicitly states. And a firm that had no actual involvement should not be listed. Silence. We'll discuss it with the mayor and get back to you. Days passed. The grand reopening was now less than 2 weeks away. Maya followed up multiple times. Each time she was told they were still discussing it or working on final approvals. Finally, 1 week before the event, the mayor himself called her. Dr. Henderson. His voice was friendly, like they were old pals. I understand you have some concerns about the dedication plaque. Yes, Mayor, I do. I want to be honest with you. He paused. We've decided to keep the plaque as originally designed. We believe it appropriately represents everyone involved in this project. Maya's heart pounded. They were refusing to change it. Mayor, with all due respect, this is my design. I spent 3 years of my life on this building. My contract explicitly states that I should receive appropriate professional credit. Listing my firm alongside another firm that did not participate in this project is not appropriate credit. It's Erasure. I understand you're disappointed. I'm not disappointed, Maya interrupted. I'm being denied what I contractually earned. Dr. Henderson, we have to think about what's best for the city. Whitmore and Associates is a respected firm with deep roots in Grand Rapids. Having their name associated with this project adds credibility. And there it was, the word Maya had been waiting for, the word that revealed everything. Credibility. A black woman's name apparently wasn't credible enough on its own. Maya felt something shift inside her, a resolve hardening like steel. She'd been patient. She'd been professional. She'd tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. But now she was done being patient. Mayor, Maya said, her voice steady and strong, I'm going to say this once very clearly. If my name is not on that plaque as the lead architect, my actual name, Dr. Maya Henderson, not just my firm, and if Whitmore and Associates is not removed since they had zero involvement in this project, then I will not attend the grand reopening. Silence on the other end. And Maya continued, I will hold a press conference explaining exactly why I'm not there. I will explain that the city violated my contract. I will explain that you thought a black woman's name needed a white-owned firm next to it for credibility. I will make sure everyone knows exactly what happened. You're threatening the city, the mayor said, his friendly tone gone. I'm not threatening anyone, Maya replied calmly. I'm informing you of the consequences of violating my contract and erasing my contribution. I have every right to defend my professional reputation and to demand the credit I earned. This will create a PR nightmare. Only if you continue down this path, Mayor. All you have to do is tell the truth, put my name on the plaque, remove the firm that wasn't involved. It's that simple. The truth shouldn't be complicated. Maya hung up, and then she did something she'd never done before. She went public. Maya opened her laptop and navigated to her professional social media accounts, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Her hands hovered over the keyboard. Once she posted this, there was no taking it back. This would be public. This would be a fight, but she thought about every young black architect who would come after her, every woman whose work would be stolen, every person of color who would be told their name wasn't credible enough, and she started typing. I designed the new Grand Rapids City Hall. I spent 3 years bringing this vision to life, every detail, every decision, every sleepless night. Yet the city is attempting to credit a firm that had zero involvement in this project. As a black woman in architecture, part of the 0.3% of licensed architects who are black women, erasure isn't new to me. But I'm no longer staying silent about it. My name is Dr. Maya Henderson, and my name belongs on the building I designed. She attached 2 images side by side, her original design sketches from 3 years ago, and a photograph of the completed building identical to her vision. The evidence was undeniable. She hit post and waited. Within 5 minutes, the responses started rolling in. Other architects, black, white, Asian, Latinx, began sharing their own stories. This happened to me on a museum project. A senior partner presented my design as his own, and I was too junior to fight it. I've had white male colleagues literally take credit for my ideas in meetings. When I corrected them, I was told I was being difficult. I once designed an entire office building. The dedication plaque listed 3 white men who supervised me. My name was at the bottom in tiny print. Women in other fields chimed in. I wrote a research paper. My male co-author did 10% of the work but gets cited as first author because it looks better. I developed a software algorithm. My company's marketing materials credit our team and show photos of the male engineers. The hashtag number credit Maya Henderson started trending, first locally in Michigan, then regionally, then nationally. Journalists started calling. Dr. Henderson, would you be willing to do an interview about this? Local news picked up the story first. Black architect says city trying to erase her name from building she designed, then regional outlets. Grand Rapids accused of contract violation in City Hall credit dispute, then national architecture publications. Erasure and attribution. The Maya Henderson case highlights ongoing issues in the profession. The American Institute of Architects, the national professional organization representing 95,000 architects, released a statement. Proper attribution is not a courtesy, it is a professional and ethical obligation. Dr. Henderson's work should be appropriately credited. We call on the city of Grand Rapids to honor their contractual commitment and professional standards. The pressure was mounting. City council members started receiving hundreds of calls and emails from constituents. Why are you erasing Dr. Henderson's name? Is this how we treat professionals in our city? Did you really think no one would notice? The mayor's office was flooded with messages. His personal social media was overwhelmed with comments. Local civil rights organizations issued statements supporting Maya. This is a clear example of how Black women's contributions are systematically minimized. Grand Rapids must do better. 5 days before the grand reopening, a journalist did something brilliant. She called Whitmore and Associates directly and asked, "What was your firm's role in the City Hall renovation?" There was a long pause on the phone. Then Thomas Whitmore, the senior partner and mayor's college buddy, gave a very careful answer. We may have had some informal conversations with the mayor's office about the project. But Dr. Henderson was certainly the lead architect. This was her design, her vision, her work. Even Whitmore wasn't willing to claim credit for work he hadn't done. The journalist published that quote. It went viral. If even the firm supposedly involved was saying it was Maya's work, why was the city insisting on including them on the plaque? The answer became obvious to everyone. Bias, pure and simple. 4 days before the grand reopening, Maya received a call from the mayor. His tone was completely different now. No more friendliness, no more condescension, just defeat. Dr. Henderson, we'd like to meet with you to discuss a resolution. I'm available tomorrow at 2 p.m., Maya said calmly. I'll bring my attorney. The next afternoon, Maya walked into City Hall, her City Hall, the building she'd designed, wearing a sharp navy suit and carrying a leather portfolio. Elizabeth Kim, her lawyer, walked beside her. They were led to a conference room where the mayor, his chief of staff, the city attorney, and 2 council members sat waiting. Everyone looked uncomfortable. The mayor cleared his throat. Dr. Henderson, we want to start by saying we never intended to diminish your contribution to this project. Maya said nothing, just waited. We realize there have been some missteps in communication. Some confusion about attribution and credits. There's been no confusion on my end, Maya said calmly. The contract was clear. I was the lead architect. My name should be on the plaque. The city attorney jumped in. We've reviewed the contract and we acknowledge that the current plaque wording doesn't fully comply with Section 7. Subsection C doesn't fully comply. That was lawyer speak, for we violated the contract. Maya pulled a piece of paper from her portfolio and slid it across the table. This is my proposed wording for the plaque, she said. Everyone leaned forward to read. Lead architect, Dr. Maya Henderson, FAIA Henderson Architecture and Design, simple, accurate, appropriate. And including her professional designation, FAIA Fellow of the American Institute of Architects, one of the highest honors in the profession. That's it, the mayor asked, sounding almost surprised. That's it, Maya confirmed. Just the truth. The city officials looked at each other. The city attorney nodded. We can do that, the mayor said. I'll also need a public statement from your office, Maya added, acknowledging the error and confirming the correction. I want it clear that this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was an error that has now been corrected. The mayor hesitated, then nodded. Agreed. And one more thing, Maya said. She'd thought carefully about this. I want the city to implement a policy requiring proper attribution on all future public projects. This shouldn't happen to anyone else. The mayor looked at his chief of staff, who nodded. We can draft that policy, he said. That afternoon, the city of Grand Rapids issued a public statement. We apologize for the error in our initial dedication materials for the City Hall renovation. Dr. Maya Henderson, FAIA, is the lead architect of this transformational project. She spent 3 years bringing this vision to life, and we are proud to have worked with her. The dedication plaque has been corrected to properly reflect her singular contribution to this building. We are also implementing new policies to ensure proper attribution on all future city projects. We recognize that this error caused harm, and we commit to doing better. Maya read the statement 3 times. It wasn't perfect. It didn't fully acknowledge the racial bias at play. It didn't mention the initial attempt to add Whitmore's name, but it was something, an acknowledgement, a correction, a public statement that she had been wronged. She had won. But God, it shouldn't have been a fight. October 15th, the day of the grand reopening. Maya stood in front of her mirror at 6:30 a.m., putting on the outfit she'd chosen weeks ago for this moment. A navy blue suit, professional, powerful, commanding respect. A white blouse, simple gold earrings her mother had given her when she'd graduated from architecture school. She looked at herself in the mirror. Dr. Maya Henderson, architect, designer of City Hall, a woman who had refused to be erased. Her parents had flown in from Detroit the night before. Her father wore his best suit, the one he reserved for the most important occasions. Her mother wore a lavender dress and had tears in her eyes before the day even began. I'm so proud of you, baby, her mother whispered. Not just for designing that beautiful building, but for fighting for your name to be on it. Her entire team from Henderson Architecture and Design came too, all 12 employees who had supported her through this project and this battle. The ceremony was scheduled for 10 a.m. By 9:30, hundreds of people had gathered outside the newly renovated City Hall. City officials, community leaders, journalists from local and national outlets, architecture students from nearby universities, regular citizens who were excited to see their new City Hall, and something Maya hadn't expected, dozens of young black girls, some with their parents, holding signs that read, "Thank you, Dr. Henderson. Black girls can be architects too. We see you, Maya." Maya's eyes filled with tears when she saw them. This was why it mattered. This was why she'd fought, not just for herself, but for every young black girl who needed to see someone who looked like her in this profession, who needed to know that their dreams were possible, who needed to see someone stand up and demand recognition. At 10 a.m., the mayor took the podium. His speech was different from what it would have been 2 weeks ago. You could tell it had been rewritten, carefully. Today we celebrate not just a building, but a vision, he began. A vision of what City Hall can be, not a fortress that keeps citizens out, but a welcoming space that invites them in. He talked about the sustainable features, the accessibility, the community meeting rooms, the symbolic transparency. And then he said the words Maya had been waiting to hear. This building is the vision of one brilliant architect, Dr. Maya Henderson, who spent 3 years of her life bringing this dream to reality. Dr. Henderson, would you please come to the podium? The crowd erupted in applause. Maya walked to the podium, her head held high. She looked out at the sea of faces, at her parents beaming with pride, at her team giving her thumbs up, at those young black girls with their signs. Thank you all for being here today, she began. This building represents 3 years of my life, but it represents more than that. It represents what's possible when we create spaces with intention, with care, with the needs of all community members in mind. She talked about her design choices, why she'd created the open atrium, why accessibility wasn't an afterthought but a central consideration, why sustainable design mattered. Then she paused. I want to be honest with you about something. The crowd quieted. You could feel the tension. A few weeks ago, I learned that my name was not going to be included on the dedication plaque for this building. Instead, credit was being given to a firm that had no involvement in this project. There were gasps, murmurs. Some people looked shocked, others looked uncomfortable. The mayor shifted in his seat. I want to acknowledge that the city has corrected this error, and I appreciate that, but I also want to talk about why this happened in the first place. She looked directly at the audience, her voice strong and clear. I am one of very few black women architects in this country. We represent less than 1% of licensed architects, and we face constant challenges to our credibility, to our expertise, to our right to claim our own work. This isn't about one plaque. It's about a pattern where the contributions of women, people of color, and especially women of color are minimized, questioned, or erased entirely. Her voice grew even stronger. I had to fight for recognition for my own work, for work that was unquestionably mine, and that's not okay. She looked at the young people in the audience, the students, the aspiring architects, the black girls with their signs. If you're a young woman, if you're a person of color, if you're anyone who doesn't fit the traditional mold of what your profession has looked like in the past, know this. She paused for emphasis. Your work matters, your voice matters. Your name matters. Don't let anyone erase you. Don't let anyone tell you that you should be grateful just to be in the room while someone else takes credit for what you built. Stand up for yourself. Demand recognition. Insist on credit, because if we don't, the erasure will continue. For a moment, the crowd was completely silent. Then one person started clapping, then another, then another. Within seconds, the entire crowd was on their feet, applauding, some people crying. Those young black girls were jumping up and down with their signs. The ovation lasted for 3 full minutes. When Maya finally stepped down from the podium, people lined up to talk to her. A young black woman, maybe 19 years old, with tears streaming down her face. I'm an architecture student. I've thought about quitting so many times, but seeing you stand up there, seeing you fight for yourself, I'm not quitting. Thank you. A white man in his 50s, a local architect. Dr. Henderson, I'm ashamed to say I've probably been part of the problem. I've never thought about how often women's contributions get minimized. You've opened my eyes. I'm going to do better. A mother with her young daughter. My daughter wants to be an architect when she grows up. Thank you for showing her it's possible. After all the speeches, after the ribbon cutting, after the tour, Maya walked over to see the dedication plaque. The new, corrected plaque, mounted on the wall in the main atrium, gleaming bronze, impossible to miss. City Hall renovation completed October 2023. Lead architect Dr. Maya Henderson, FAIA Henderson Architecture and Design. Below that, the contractors, engineers, city officials. But there, at the top, where it belonged, her name. Maya stood there for a long moment, her father's arm around her shoulders. You did it, baby girl, he whispered. You didn't just design a beautiful building, you showed people what it means to stand up for yourself. Maya smiled. Yes, it had been exhausting. Yes, it had been frustrating. Yes, it had been painful. But she had won. More importantly, she had shown others that it was possible to win. Maya's story isn't unique. It's part of a much larger pattern of women and people of color having their work stolen, minimized, or erased throughout history and continuing today. Let me share some examples because understanding this pattern is crucial. Rosalind Franklin was a brilliant chemist who took the X-ray images that were essential to discovering the structure of DNA. But James Watson and Francis Crick used her data without her permission and got the Nobel Prize. For decades, Rosalind Franklin's crucial contribution was barely mentioned. She died before receiving proper recognition. Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson were genius mathematicians whose calculations were essential to NASA's early space missions, including putting the first American in space. But for decades, their names were left out of history books. It wasn't until the movie Hidden Figures came out in 2016 that most people learned about them. Hedy Lamarr was a famous Hollywood actress. But she was also a brilliant inventor who developed frequency-hopping technology during World War II, technology that became the foundation for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. But for most of her life, her scientific contributions were ignored because people couldn't believe a beautiful actress could also be a brilliant inventor. Qin-Shiung Wu was a Chinese-American physicist whose experiments proved a groundbreaking theory about subatomic particles. But the Nobel Prize went to the 2 male theoretical physicists whose theory she'd proven. She got nothing. And this pattern continues today. Studies show that, when women speak in meetings, their ideas are more likely to be attributed to men who repeat them later. Research papers with female lead authors are cited less frequently than identical papers with male lead authors. Women entrepreneurs are asked different questions by investors than men. Women are asked about risk and potential losses. Men are asked about vision and potential gains. Black professionals report having to work twice as hard to get half the recognition as their white colleagues. For Black women, these challenges are compounded. They face both gender bias and racial bias simultaneously. In Maya's case, the city literally said they needed to add a white-toned firm's name to give the project credibility, as if a black woman's credentials, experience, and brilliant design weren't credible enough on their own. Even though Maya had a doctorate in architecture, years of experience, award-winning projects in her portfolio, the highest professional designation, FAIA, a design that had unanimously impressed the city council, her blackness and her gender made some people question whether she was really capable. This is what we call implicit bias. The mayor probably didn't think of himself as racist or sexist. He might genuinely believe in equality, but he'd internalized messages from society, from media, from history, from culture that white men and white-toned institutions are more credible, more legitimate, more trustworthy. And that unconscious bias almost cost Maya the recognition she had earned. So what can we learn from Maya's story? Lesson 1: credit matters. Your name on your work isn't vanity. It's not being egotistical or demanding special treatment. It's professional recognition. It's how you build a reputation. It's how you advance your career. It's how you get more opportunities. It's how history remembers your contributions. When women say, "I don't need credit, I just want to do good work," that's often socialization talking. We've been taught that asking for credit is unfeminine or aggressive, but men don't hesitate to claim credit. And guess whose careers advance faster? Credit matters. Lesson 2: documentation is power. Maya had her contract. She had the clause about attribution in writing. She had her original design sketches. She had evidence that this was her work. When someone tries to steal credit from you, documentation is everything. Save your emails. Keep records of your contributions. Get agreements in writing. Document your work. It might feel paranoid, but it can save you later. Lesson 3: don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Maya could have stayed quiet. She could have told herself, "It's not worth the fight. At least my firm is mentioned. I don't want to seem difficult. What if this hurts my career?" But she stood up for herself. She demanded what she'd earned. She fought. And in doing so, she stood up for everyone else who's had their work erased. Lesson 4: public pressure works. The city didn't change the plaque because they suddenly realized it was the right thing to do. They changed it because Maya went public, because journalists picked up the story, because people spoke up in support, because the professional organization issued statements, because constituents called their council members. Silence protects injustice. Public accountability creates change. Lesson 5: this isn't just about one person. Maya's fight helped other people. Her willingness to speak up gave others courage. Her visibility made more people aware of how often this happens. Every time someone stands up and says, "No, this is my work and my name belongs on it," they make it a little bit easier for the next person. Lesson 6: change happens when people refuse to accept erasure. For too long, women and people of color have been told, "Be grateful you're in the room, don't make waves, wait your turn, be patient," but patience without accountability is just acceptance of injustice. Maya refused to accept erasure, and because she did, policies changed, awareness increased, future architects will benefit. That's how progress happens. Today, if you visit Grand Rapids City Hall, you'll see Dr. Maya Henderson's name on that dedication plaque, right there in the main atrium. Impossible to miss, undeniable. You'll also see her name on the architectural drawings displayed in glass cases, on the informational materials given to tour groups, on the city's website describing the renovation. Her name is everywhere it should be. But more than that, you'll experience her vision. You'll walk through that light-filled atrium and feel welcomed. You'll use those accessible ramps and realize that good design serves everyone. You'll see those community meeting rooms and understand that this building belongs to the people. You'll experience the result of 3 years of one brilliant woman's life, her expertise, her creativity, her commitment to creating space where democracy can thrive. Since that grand opening, Maya has become even more vocal about issues of credit and recognition in architecture. She mentors young Black architects, especially women. She speaks at universities about the importance of standing up for yourself. She's working with the American Institute of Architects to create stronger professional standards around attribution. Her firm has taken on more major projects: a new public library in Detroit, a community center in Chicago, a courthouse in Indianapolis. And every single time, she makes absolutely certain that the contracts are ironclad about credit and attribution. She's not taking any chances, and she's teaching others not to take chances either. The mayor of Grand Rapids, he claims he learned from this experience. he talks about the importance of recognizing diverse contributions. Whether that's genuine growth or just good PR, time will tell, but one thing's for sure, he'll think twice before trying to erase someone's contribution again. Here's what I want you to take away from this story. If you're someone who creates, who builds, who contributes, demand credit for your work. Don't be modest to the point of erasure. Don't let societal pressure to be humble become acceptance of invisibility. Your work has value. Your contributions matter. Your name deserves recognition. If you're someone in a position of power, a manager, a leader, someone who gives out credit, be intentional about attribution. Make sure the people who actually did the work get recognized. Don't let bias influence who you think deserves credit. Notice who gets credit and who gets overlooked. Notice patterns, address them. If you're someone who sees erasure happening, speak up. Support the person being erased. Share their work, amplify their voice, be an ally in practice, not just in theory. Because here's the fundamental truth: humanity has no color. Talent has no color, genius has no color, but erasure has a pattern. And that pattern disproportionately affects women and people of color. We can't fix centuries of inequality overnight. But we can start by doing something simple, giving credit where credit is due. Dr. Maya Henderson designed a beautiful, transformational city hall, and now, finally, rightfully, her name is on it, as it always should have been. Thank you for watching Truly Black and White. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think, if it inspired you, please share it. These stories matter. These lessons matter. The more people who understand how often women and people of color have their contributions erased, the harder it becomes for that erasure to continue. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next story. And leave a comment telling us, have you ever had your work stolen or gone uncredited? How did you handle it? Your stories create community. Your experiences help others feel less alone. Remember, your work matters, your name matters. Never let anyone erase you. Stand up for yourself, stand up for others, demand recognition, insist on credit. Because every time someone stands up and says, "This is my work," every time someone refuses to be invisible, they make it easier for the next person. They change the pattern, they shift the culture, they create a world where everyone gets the credit they earn. That's the world we're building together. See you in the next video.